College football is days away. It's not quite the crisp fall air. I don't know about down in Florida, but it is still balmy August. But I am still excited for football because this time of the year, hope springs eternal and everyone has a chance. Trev, how are you feeling about your Seminoles going into the 2022 season?
Oh, well, extremely pessimistic as I always am, as I should be
Always.
with a pretty mediocre Florida State team. However, for those other college football fans out there, you should probably feel exactly pessimistic as I am with the crazy powerhouses that are out there, the college realignment. However, we'll enjoy our conferences as we have them now, and I can't wait to preview what we have coming here today.
Yeah.
So I'll be a little optimistic, but what I really want to hear is, Newman, what are your thoughts coming into this season, my friend?
About Florida State, I'm way more optimistic than Trevor. In fact, it sucks with Trevor having your phone number because he will just text you the most pessimistic shit that he can find, and uses Facebook.
That way you're never let down. I get it. I absolutely get it.
Strategery. Straight up strategery here.
But yeah, so we'll touch on my thoughts on Florida State when we get into that. I think we should start right there at the top. I think it's going to be more of a year like it was, like Brandon expects it to be most years, with the powers at the top controlling most of what's going on. But there could be a couple spots where there's a little bit of parity and some new blood.
Yeah, we can absolutely just recycle everything I said last year, right? Because on this exact show, almost a year to date, I said it's going to be about 2 to 3 teams, and that's about who it's going to be. And, while I certainly didn't see Cincinnati and Michigan, coming through, it was pretty much Alabama and Georgia the entire way, which we said in the show a year ago. And I think that's going to be pretty consistent in this show as well. What we're going to do here, guys, is we're going to go conference to conference and just burn through the teams, some of the players. But as you know, if you've watched this show before, it's a gambling show. So we'll also have a little bit of that flair to it as well.
Yeah, the one thing I would do want to point out,
picked,
and I don't like saying this often, but I'm pretty sure, wasn't it this time last year that Newman picked Georgia to win it all? I hate to bring it up, but I'm pretty sure that happened. I'll give credit where it's due. However, things will be different this season. Things will be much different.
There's no way you can go 2 for 2. There's no way you can
with Georgia or with me?
With you.
When was the last time a college football team won back-to-back championships? It's probably happens way more than Newman getting back-to-back wins. Well, whatever. We'll see how it happens. I'll give you credit. You got your credit, Newman. Now continue on.
Now we'll move forward into the SEC, and you know what? We'll let Newman start with what he thinks of Georgia coming into the year.
So obviously, a lot of you guys are football fans. You've watched a lot of college football. You've probably watched a lot of NFL football, and Georgia has to replace a lot of talent. Fortunately for Georgia, they've built they're building, I don't know, like a Death Star, kind of like Alabama has over there, where they just reload with tons of talent. So they're younger. They're still really talented, but they do have to replace a lot. Ultimately, I think that Georgia's going to be a really good football team. They're still probably going to win their division. But I'm not sure if they're going to have the goods to beat Alabama this year. So I could totally see Georgia completely missing the playoff if they suffer an in-season loss and then wind up losing in the SEC championship game, giving them 2 losses.
This is going to be a common thing for me, as it is at any level, is let's look at the quarterback. And you got Stetson Bennett. Are you guys buying into Stetson Bennett? Because last year, Trevor, I think Georgia won in spite of Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, this team doesn't ride on his shoulders like most college football teams ride on their quarterback shoulders. Georgia will reload, yes. However, Bama reloads way better. So, Georgia is definitely scary. I don't think they have a ton of competition in their division. I still think the University of Florida will lose to them in Jacksonville, which I will probably attend. But I think they regress a little bit. I mean, who doesn't regress after winning a national championship, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they're going to have to rely on their two running backs. But the guy I'm most excited for, because he should play in the Big Ten, not the SEC, is tight end Brock Bowers. That guy is an absolute monster, isn't he, Newman?
Yeah, he's. I think that they're going to rely on him a lot. But they do lose. They lost some of their wide receiver talent. Not that they used a lot of it. They did lose George Pickens. Somebody might be happy about the fact that they now have George Pickens on their NFL team. And then, they lost like Trey Burton, actually transferred from Georgia to Alabama. So they lost their guys that way. But ultimately, with Stetson Bennett at the helm, I don't know that the wide receiver talent really mattered that much because he's not exactly going to kill you through the air. So, I think that,
you definitely want to bet. You want to goat him into throwing the ball for sure.
Yeah. I think that there's actually a halfway decent chance that Stetson Bennett could get benched at some point for one of their, 5-star quarterbacks that they have sitting behind him. If they do suffer a loss that they shouldn't or something. But they're going to ride him for a while, but having the courage to actually bench a guy who's a national champion, it might actually be the key to actually winning it again for Georgia. So I don't know if Kirby's got
let's
that
talk
courage.
about their biggest competition in Alabama, and they got some guys on defense. I mean, this team literally almost reminds me of Georgia last year with some of the guys they have on defense. Everyone knows about Will Anderson. But you got Dallas Turner coming back from an 8-sack year. You got Newman, correct me when I definitely spell or pronounce his name wrong. Henry Toa. Either way,
Yeah,
it's
so-
one of their. He led the team in tackles. He's back this year at the linebacker spot. This defense it's normally hard to score on Alabama, but good luck this year.
Yeah, honestly, Will Anderson is the best player in the country. He should be the Heisman this year if he stays healthy. If he produces like he did last year, he should have been the Heisman last year, but they never give that award to a defensive player. So his buddy Bryce Young on the other side of the ball got it. It is very hard to win back-to-back Heismans. Otherwise, I think Bryce Young would be the clear favorite for this award. But they also have this guy by the name of Jahmyr Gibbs that transferred in from Georgia Tech, who's an absolute stud. And when an Alabama quarterback doesn't win it, but Alabama wins national championship, and Alabama is a good get in the Heisman. So Jahmyr Gibbs, pull him in as a potential Heisman winner there too. But yeah, Alabama's got 5 stars everywhere. I think it's easy to say that they're hands down one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win it all.
Yeah, at plus 175 to win it all, minus 145. They are negative money to win the SEC. That's crazy. But that just shows how freaking good they are.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I just want people to also understand that Georgia still has a pretty sick, nasty defense. Geez, like they're returning some good players. You got to watch out. 9.5 points given up per game last season. I don't remember the last time a team gave up less than 10 points a game.
Yep.
But Bama still has the firepower, and they're going to completely reload. But I don't know. Other than those two, Brando and Newman, are there any other challengers or wild card people here in the SEC? I don't really see it, honestly.
I just want Newman to talk Jimbo Fisher, and I want you to talk Florida. Please make my night. I don't care which one of you go first, but I'm going to make you guys each talk about your two loves, Florida football and Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah,
I'll let Newman take Jimbo.
Texas A&M just had the greatest recruiting class in the history of recruiting classes, as long as they've been ranking teams. And apparently they bought them per Nick Saban. Jimbo refutes that, and that could make that game extra fun. Jimbo was the first Nick Saban disciple to actually beat him in a college football game, and Kirby Smart was the second. So don't forget that little factor. But ultimately, I think that this team's uber talented. They do have to replace 5 of 6 of their front 7 on their defense. Fortunately for them, they have a bunch of 4 and 5 stars in order to do that. And then they lose their starting quarterback for the game against Alabama, Zach Calzada, to Auburn. They do replace him with Max Johnson, and they still have Haynes King, who was the starter coming out week 1 for them last year. So some quarterback questions, which is never a great thing. But also their biggest issue for Texas A&M is Jimbo Fisher. And that will continue the case because when Jimbo Fisher does not have an elite quarterback, Jimbo Fisher cannot win a national championship. And this team, I don't know that they have an elite quarterback. His name could be Connor Wegman, but I doubt he plays this year because Jimbo doesn't necessarily play true freshmen. Jameis was a redshirt freshman when he started at Florida State, and that could hinder them. Also, Jimbo runs a slow pace. Whenever Jimbo Fisher actually decides that he will start getting with the times and running a little bit more up tempo and creating some RPO games and easy wins, then I think that they could take a leap. But at this point, they have some talent wide receiver. They just don't get the ball to him enough.
Yeah, no, for sure. And listen to this steep decline. You got Bama minus 145 to win the SEC. You have Georgia plus 155. A&M is the second best at plus 1,800. This is a 2-team race. Before I get into some, because I have 2 other fun teams that I'm going to be watching in the SEC, but I have to watch Trevor painfully talk through Florida football. Please talk some Gators to me, Trev.
Well, Napier coming in there, brand new coach. You've got Anthony Richardson, who's an unproven quarterback. He had a battle last season as a sophomore. You got a transfer running back here in Montrell Johnson coming from Louisiana, following Napier. I don't know. I'm not sold on their wide receivers either. However, they do have a pretty solid offensive line, and their defense is ultimately not too shabby as well. However, they play in the SEC. They don't have the top tier SEC talent like your Georgia or Bama. I think it's going to be a lot of learning curves for Napier coming into the SEC, which he literally hasn't had a lot of that opportunity coming from where he is. So I see Florida, straggling a little bit. Probably going to beat Florida State, but in conference,
You
they're
knew I was
definitely
going to
have
ask.
a down
You
season.
answered it. You answered it before I asked you. I was going to say I agree. I think Florida's going to be down. They're in a transition period, but it seems like Florida State has been in a perpetual transition period. So which team wins Newman this year? Prediction time: Florida or Florida State?
So this is a really difficult question because it's fucking 12 weeks away.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
And these teams could be way different than then. Either one of these teams suffers a quarterback injury, and that essentially neutralizes the other team. Here's the other thing about Florida. So Anthony Richardson is their quarterback. People loved him because he, looked great at times last year. He also looked like absolute dog shit. And hurt himself multiple times, including doing dancing before a game that they wound up losing.
Kids want to have fun, Newman. Kids want to have fun.
But what do we know about
police?
What do we know about Dan Mullen? He is one of the elite game play callers and schemers in college football last year and consistently over the past several years. And so he didn't think that Anthony Richardson was ready. And now all of a sudden Billy Napier is going to come in and their offense is going to perform better. I highly doubt that. So, I mean, Napier is going to take this team to probably heights that Mullen couldn't because he's a better recruiter. But ultimately, I think that this is a step back year for Florida. I mean, for now, I'm going to say that Florida State has just as good a chance to beat Florida.
There we go.
As anyone.
Again, it's hope season, baby.
It's going to be a Friday night in Tallahassee, the day after Thanksgiving. So, standalone TV once again. And I mean, I'll take the home team getting a little bit of an edge. It's right now, if I'm setting the line, it's minus 1 point Florida State, or a half point. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not super convinced on it, but I'll take the action right now.
Even ground, both quarterbacks are out. Florida's stomping Florida State there with the ultimate talent that they have. Both quarterbacks in there. No, maybe Florida State has a shot. Maybe.
All right, let's do some quick hitters here before we jump to the Big
State's
Ten.
A better team than they are at that point.
Let's do some quick hitters. I love Kentucky. Don't let Sanders or Mike hear this, but Will Levis can absolutely play. They're going to score a lot of points, as well as Arkansas. KJ Jefferson is really good. The Avenger Treylon Burks is not there in down there in Arkansas, but I'm going to be hammering Kentucky and hammering Arkansas simply because I love their quarterbacks. And as Newman said, quarterbacks are pretty much the most integral part to any team at any level, but especially in the SEC. So, any other teams you guys are looking at out there in the SEC before we jump to God's country?
So I think that Tennessee's really good. We talked about quarterbacks. Hendon Hooker had an awesome season last year. They returned 76% of their production from the prior season. This is year 2 for Heupel. So they actually have some time to install the scheme a little bit more, practice, recruit to it and stuff like that. So I think that Tennessee is very much so a team that can take a leap here. And when you say that you're very much so planning on hammering Kentucky and Arkansas, you're talking about individual games, right? You're not taking either of these teams.
Individual games. Yeah. Overs, baby. Okay. Overs club. Let's go.
Yeah. I think the lane trade a little bit interesting there. But losing Matt Corral, they should regress a little bit. And then LSU with the Brian Kelly change, I want to hear what you guys think about that. Jaden Daniels is they brought him in to play quarterback. He's in a competition with Garrett Nussmeier. They have a really good defensive line, really good wide receiver, but their offensive line is absolutely a question mark, as is their secondary. So
Brian Kelly wins everywhere he goes. I think it's going to take a little bit to get the talent gap made up in the SEC. But if you can recruit at Notre Dame, you can definitely recruit at LSU. This isn't the year for LSU, but I mean, I'm buying stock now while it's at a good price.
Yeah, LSU, I think, ranked second in the transfer portal. It means of like transfers and rankings. So they definitely reloaded.
Who cares?
Even despite all that. Yes, Brian Kelly wins. However, it's going to take some time to get that continuity in there. I'm predicting they start out the season, 1-1. So we'll see how that goes. But LSU is going to have an up road hill to do anything in the SEC this season.
Quick question on Brian Kelly. Does he win a national championship while at LSU or no? Because the last 3 coaches that have coached at LSU have won national championships.
Yes.
When has he won a national championship? Has Brian Kelly won a national championship?
He has not.
No. I mean, division okay. Whitewater, whatever, Division 2 or whatever he did, but not.
That's not a national championship.
That's not what I asked though, Trevor. I asked, does he win a national championship? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
I don't think he does.
More cringy Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly is good for the entertainment. They're good for people like us.
Only if he gets a better like Southern accent.
No, I want it to get worse.
He needs to.
I want it to get worse. Actually, I do declare. Speaking of declaring, let me just go and declare Ohio State this year's national champion as we move into the Big Ten. This is the best offense in the country with a top 3 quarterback, top 5 running back, and maybe the best wide receiver in the country with Stroud, Henderson, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. They're going to be incredible. Their defense has better pieces than they are as a whole. They actually didn't have a great defense, but they did grab Oklahoma State's defensive coordinator, who did very well in the Pac-12. If you can get the Big 12, if you can get the Big 12 to play defense, you did really, really well. And just to show just how big of a favorite Ohio State is in the Big Ten, if you thought minus 145 was bad, they're minus 215 to win the Big Ten. The Big Ten as a whole steps back this year, but I think, I said this in another pod, I think this is the best Ohio State team since the 2013 team, which also won the national championship. Well, you guys, you on the Buckeye train?
I'll hop in right here. I don't have too much to say about the Big Ten other than like I am absolutely on the Buckeyes like bandwagon right here. They look good. That offense is going to put up so many points. Like watch out for, potentially the most points scored by a college football team because the rest of the Big Ten regresses. There's not as much talent there in the Big Ten, and they're just going to run through that conference. And ultimately, if you look at like the non-conference schedules, like Ohio State doesn't necessarily have that hard of a pathway there.
I mean, they start with Notre Dame, and that's about it. I mean, Notre Dame will be their toughest game all year. And
congratulations, the biggest overrated, non-Power 5 team to be out there. That's awesome. So, I mean, I'll take Ohio State all day here, and that's all I have to say about the Big Ten is it's Ohio State's realm. Go for it.
Sure. What say you, Newman?
Yeah. So, I mean, Ohio State's really good. I think that they should be one of the people to win the national championship because that's how good they are. You did mention Travion Henderson. He's an elite running back. Jackson Smith and Jigba is the best wide receiver that Ohio State's had in probably 5 years, and they've put a lot of those guys in the NFL. So that's saying something about him. I think it's clear that Ohio State is the team. Michigan did knock them off last year, but I don't think that Michigan's going to be able to maintain what they did. They do lose Josh Gaddis. And so that plus, some good defensive talent. So I expect Ohio State to take a leap forward here. But they do open with Notre Dame, which could be a very interesting game, but I think it's kind of going to pad their record a little bit and help them out in the polls.
So Georgia, who won the national championship last year, has worse odds to win it this year. Ohio State's the second favorite to win the national championship at plus 300. I'm not much of a futures bets guy, but I think they're the best team in the country. And if I can get them to 4-1, that's pretty good. Let's talk about that team that knocked off Ohio State last year, Michigan, at plus 600 to win the Big Ten. I mean, Trevor, I think this is the case of if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. They don't know if they're starting McNamara or McCarthy. They lose a lot on that defense. I think Michigan steps back pretty significantly here. They're still Michigan and the Big Ten's down, but I think they're maybe an 8-9 win team this year.
Do you think they're the second best team in the East?
I don't. I like Michigan State this year. Michigan State, again, talk about Portal King. Mel Tucker, he did it once, he did it twice, he did it 3 times. I really like Michigan State to beat Michigan again. And I may even like Penn State a little bit more just because, Sean Clifford's 32 and still playing football.
Yeah, I mean, I expect Michigan to regress. I think that the loss of Gaddis hurts a lot. And then in general, I think that defense should a little bit losing their DC, the Ravens, as well as, a bunch of elite players off that defense in Dax Hill, Aiden Hutchinson, etc.
Yeah, no, I mean, you talked about Georgia losing a lot. I think Michigan actually loses, maybe not the mere amount, but the impact. Michigan doesn't reload quite like Georgia reloads. Trevor, you said the Big Ten steps back. Listen to some of these quarterbacks: Peyton Thorne, Spencer Petras, Graham Mertz, Tanner Morgan. I mean, talk about a squad of mediocre. If the Big Ten actually ever wants to compete with the SEC, they have to improve their quarterback play.
Well,
right?
They've never had to have great quarterbacks to actually compete. And that's been their struggle, is they have so many other good, pieces to make it happen. However, I'm sorry, Michigan, but with McNamara, that's probably not going to happen. I do think Jim Harbaugh had his best team he's ever had at Michigan last season, and he couldn't get it done. And from here on out, I don't think he'll ever get it done. So good luck, Graham Mertz. Hey, Brandon, I know that's your boy.
Graham Mertz is my boy. Mertz is my boy. Okay.
I know. No, I love he's your boy that you love to hate because he's so bad. And once you said it, every time I watch him, I'm like, yes, he's absolutely the worst. Thank God Wisconsin has some of the best offensive line and a pretty good defense because it masks the horribleness of Mertz. But no, there's nothing else to say about the Big Ten. It's Ohio State all the way, and they have no other quarterbacks other than Stroud over there at Ohio State.
So, yeah, Brandon, who wins the West?
That's a great question. A lot of people are hammering Wisconsin, and then probably going Iowa. I'm taking a flyer on Purdue. They have the best quarterback in the West. They have a wide receiver coming back who's got NFL potential. And Jeff Brom, again, kind of similar to what you said about some of the SEC coaches. He's a great offensive mind. His defense, I think, will always suck because he literally doesn't care about that side of the ball. But Purdue's going to be able to score, similar to what I said about Kentucky and Arkansas. You can take Purdue in the over quite a bit this year and win a lot of money. So
Yeah.
don't tell any of my friends that I'm hyping up Kentucky and Purdue because I may not be allowed over to their houses anymore. But yeah, I'm taking a flyer with Purdue to win to come out of the West.
So I like a different team. I actually am down on Wisconsin. Normally, I'm a big Wisconsin guy. I like the style of defense that they play. I'm a big Jim Leonhard fan, but they do lose 7 starters on their defense. They have a stud at running back in Brayden Allen. He was a freshman last year, and he absolutely tore up the Big Ten. Was he freshman of the year? I believe he was in the Big Ten.
Yep.
But yeah, Graham Mertz holds them back. They also don't have any wide receivers to write home about. And but they do have a new offensive coordinator, Bobby Ingram, who people think is going to revolutionize Wisconsin's offense. I don't see it until they actually have some talent at wide receiver. So Graham Mertz or not, but I expect them to take a step back and lose that division to Minnesota. Is actually my pick in the West. They get Kirk Shiraka back. They return a bunch of studs, including Mo Abraham. They have Tanner Morgan still, who's a veteran and has at least shown some level of competency at quarterback, including when
he's at least better than Graham Mertz.
When he previously had Kirk Shiraka, and they actually have some wide receiver talent to write home about. So I'm on the Minnesota train here as an underdog flyer.
Is it because you kind of look like Tanner Morgan? Like you guys definitely have the same amount of hair on your guys' head.
No, it's because Gophers look like beavers, and Newman will never pass up a good-looking beaver. That's straight up the only reason.
Yeah, I mean, I hate PJ Fleck, and I think he's a complete clown. He reminds me of Tom Crean.
He hates on your boy.
He's a clown. I can't get myself to root for you at quarterback and a clown at coach. So
okay, so
that's my thoughts on Minnesota.
Some rapid fire, Brandon. Give me some thoughts on Iowa. Give me some thoughts on Penn State, and then Nebraska, and then we'll wrap it up with your boys and tell me how good Indiana is going to be or not be this year.
Yeah, Iowa's defense really relied on turnovers last year. It started at Indiana where they got 6 turnovers, but they rolled that into the entire year. They had the largest turnover differential in the entire country, and turnovers are a really hard stat to be consistent year to year. I think with the turnover regression and Spencer Petras, I think Iowa struggles to score. I think they're still going to win the fair amount of games. Because their defense is really good, but I do think they take a step back a little bit in that aspect. Penn State has really good receivers again. They got a couple big transfers. They have 2 stud running backs. They have a 5-star and a high-rated 4-star. They always seem to have a stable of really good running backs. I think they're going to be consistent. I think Penn State and Michigan State kind of fight for that number 2 spot in the East. But again, consistent in the Big Ten. I do think Sean Clifford holds them back. He can be dynamic with his legs, but ultimately he can't throw.
So the thing about Iowa and going to Penn State is there's no way they beat Penn State if Sean Clifford doesn't get hurt in that game last year, right? Right. They would have gotten murdered. So, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely down on Iowa because of that. And I think Penn State is a good team. They have a chance to be the second best team in the East, especially considering that Michigan State still has the struggles in the secondary and stuff. So if you can throw the ball on Michigan State, you can beat them. And I mean, Sean Clifford may be good enough to do that at least.
Yep. Much like Trevor just left, I want the opposite for Scott Frost. He has absolutely murdered the Nebraska program. Nebraska is a bottom 3, bottom 4 program in the entire Big Ten, maybe even worse than that. So I want Scott Frost to stay there forever. And then we'll end on a high note on my Indiana Hoosiers. They bring in Connor Baslick, who was in the SEC Freshman of the Year just 2 years ago. He lit up the SEC when he was a freshman, but they call it sophomore slump for a reason. Him, just like the rest of Missouri, really, really struggled last year, and they mutually broke up. I think if Connor can come in and play like his freshman self in a down Big Ten, I think IU could win 6, 7, 8 games. If he is the quarterback that he was last year, it could be another really ugly season in Bloomington. It's all gonna hinge on what Connor does under center. They bring back 2 potential first-round draft picks in outside linebacker Cam Jones and corner Tywan Mullen. If Mullen rings a bell, the corner over in Vegas, who went to Clemson, and
Trayvon Mullen.
And then his youngest brother is also at IU as well. So you're going to have 2 Mullen Islands kind of locking down. IU's defense should be good, which it has been for the past few years. But honestly, it's all going to depend on who's under center.
I'm glad that you spoke about the Mullins because those are the only players I know at Indiana. That's one of the only players I know. And you're absolutely right. The studs and has some good family talent. So those are the only ones I know. So those are the ones I'll be watching.
Yeah, this schedule really hard. I think there's a halfway decent chance they don't even eclipse their over-under. So, it might be another dreadful season for you up there because I don't think Connor Basil looks all that good.
So highest odds of anyone plus 30,000 to win the Big Ten. That's 31 to 1.
We're throwing down $100 on.
Is that literally 30,000 or is that a joke? Come on.
They play the nation's hardest schedule.
No.
Yes,
I thought that goes to like Auburn or something.
No. Nope. They play the nation's hardest schedule.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. Let's move to the Pac-12. Which again has some Big Ten ties, as Trevor alluded to in the beginning here. But another team Newman was all over last year. I gotta give it to him. He was on top of Utah, and I think you're probably gonna be pretty high on Utah coming into this year too, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that Utah is a college football playoff team. I think that they roll the Pac-12 there. They actually open with Florida at Florida, which could be a difficult game for them just because of the heat and humidity in Gainesville in early September there. But the style of football they want to play, Florida just can't keep up with. So they could get out to a big lead and maybe Florida comes back later in the game because they're tired. But this team went toe-to-toe with Ohio State, as good as Ohio State is. And they nearly pulled it off. And
that was a fun game.
It was probably the best football game to watch all season. And Cam Rising even got hurt in that game. If he doesn't get hurt, I think there's a good chance that they win it. So since they installed Cam Rising, they basically don't lose, and I don't expect them to lose much this year. They have a really good team. They returned 83% of their production from last year. They're going to roll, and I mean that plus 240 is not great. In terms of some betting odds for them, but it's still a little extra cash in your kitty if you take it. And then
what was that one? What was it? Cash in where?
Kitty? What is that?
Kitty? Yeah,
I don't even understand what that is. Like, explain yourself. Like, you throwing that one out there? Like, the kids don't know what that means. Come on,
look it up. Anyway, but yeah, give me some odds on Utah to make the college football playoff, and I'm gonna hammer that. Take Utah money line against Florida. I saw Florida as a 3-point favorite, and that's insane to me. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of betting on Utah, and they're going to win it a lot. So
all right, we can talk about Cam Rising, who I think has one of the best names in all of college football. But for me, it's Tavion Thomas is the straw that stirs the drink for Utah. I think he has a chance to win the Doak Walker. And they have a deep ball threat in Vele, which is also an awesome name. I'm going to be rooting for Utah strictly because of they got the all
The name
names
value.
team.
The name
The
value.
name
Yeah.
value is just huge for the Utes this year.
So
And
yeah,
they
so
play in the lesser side of the conference, which
Utah
is
does.
important.
Oregon plays in the lesser side of the conference. They're in the north. So the Pac-12 actually did away with divisions for the purposes of the conference championship game, though. So there's a chance that we get two teams from the South, which is the tougher conference. But Oregon probably has it easiest because they do the schedule still is more divisional based for right now.
Get Trevor's favorite Auburn quarterback under center at
yeah.
Oregon.
Bo Nix has transferred to Oregon to reunite with Kenny Dillingham, who was Florida State's offense coordinator the past couple years, and we saw how that worked out. But they do have, they lose two running backs, including Travis Dye, who is their best running back to USC, but they still have some talent there at running back. And then Noah Sewell is an absolute stud linebacker, the brother of Penn Sewell, and that should keep Oregon and still allow them to be a good football team. But I don't think that they can, they probably would win the North if that was a thing still. And that may get them into the championship game. But I don't think that they're going to be, the class of the Pac-12 like they have been previously.
Guys, come on. Are we really not going to even mention Southern California, the fucking Spartans, who literally had the biggest haul in the Pac-12 in the off season, with bringing in Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams. Oh wait, let's not forget they brought in Jordan Addison, the Bolitnikov, whatever. He might be the best wide receiver out there. And by the way, they have the best odds to actually win the Pac-12. This team is absolutely stacked. Yes, they are relying on some big transfers, some new coaching. I mean, college is all about that continuity, as I mentioned before. But I mean, I'm sorry. They've got money. They've got players. This team you really need to watch after. And this is the team that I have going. It's also one reason why they have the best odds out of any Pac-12 school to win the national championship. Others are looking at them. I don't like to bet against Vegas, and you probably shouldn't either. So watch out for this team. USC is going to steamroll this conference. Even though I do like Utah, I love that defense. That defense is sick nasty. USC is going to come in with some really high-powered offense that's going to really light it up. And to me, the first time USC has done this in a very, very long time. Watch out for this team.
USC doesn't have the offensive line to run the offense that they want to run, and they're going to absolutely get torched by Utah. Utah is going to be able to push them around just like they do every other team in this conference, and they're going to be able to stop USC from doing whatever the hell they want because they actually run a good defense. So I'll take that action all day, Trevor. USC is going to be really good, but it's not going to be immediately because that offensive line in the trenches is not good enough. Plus, that defense is very, very good.
Do you need that good a defense when you have Caleb Williams thrown to Jordan Addison?
A team that's installing.
No, literally, USC is going to put up at least 40% more points than they did last season. Let's just tat that on from what that defense is going to do. It's going to make up for a lot of inaccuracies on that defensive side. That's how big.
Did Caleb Williams play in an offense coordinated by Lincoln Riley last year?
Yes, he did.
Did they need their defense? Did they need their defense?
No, they did not.
Did they win all their games? Did they win all their games? I don't think they did, right? Maybe it's because their defense wasn't any good, and I still don't expect it to be any good. No, same driver, different boat. But yeah, to me, this is I don't understand the question. There's no way that USC is going to be able to beat Utah this year. It's just not happening.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm with Trevor. I think USC is going to be a ton of fun, and I'm here for fun. This team is going to put up a lot of points, and I think that's all Lincoln Riley cares about, that he's bringing that Lakers swag to USC. They just want to be the greatest show on turf. That's what Lincoln Riley was brought in for. No one's thinking or talking defense right there in the Rose Bowl. So give me USC. I love Cam Rising. I love Tavion Thomas. But yeah, I'm going to take the greatest show on the Pac-12 turf to win the Pac-12. But I just need to stop everything at this point. And I won't play the Paul Rudd. Hey, look at us. But you got me talking up Purdue, Kentucky. You have Trevor talking up or picking Florida and picking against UCLA. What is going on in this show? Trevor and I are doing everything that we completely hate.
Yeah, we're probably gearing towards our better judgment and the more of our brain power that's thinking about what's going on. But also, if you play the pessimism game as much as I do, hopefully you're wrong and it goes the way that you hope it goes, internally at least. But no, there's a lot to look after these teams,
Brandon,
especially USC. I'm just saying. I know
Brandon
Newman doesn't
USC
like
win
it.
because he wants. Brandon just wants USC to win because he wants them to come into the Pac-10 to the Big Ten as like, oh yeah, they're better than the Pac-12. See, we got the best team.
Yeah, buddy.
You know
better
it's true.
believe it. You better believe it.
Even though UCLA has better sports overall, but this is a football show. We won't get into the other sports. However, we'll see. We're not going to do conference alignment this show. I'm sure we'll get into that later down the road. There's a lot to talk about there, but I mean, I'm pretty sure we're good to go on the Pac-12. There isn't too much to talk about. Unless you guys want to go into Washington or Arizona State. Really?
Trevor, you're not gonna get out of here without talking some UCLA, Trevor. So tell us what you think about your boy Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly, he's the man, and he would be running this conference, totally running this conference if he was there. However, UCLA had a great season last year. There's no chance with USC and the firepower that they have. I really don't have too much to talk about them because ultimately my dad went to UCLA. He hasn't talked much about it, and if he's not talking much about it, there's probably not much to really talk about. So I'm not even getting into it.
They have Zach Charbonnet. I like him. He was a really good back at Michigan.
Are we on year 5 of DTR? I think.
Yeah.
Maybe
this is
he's
one of these. Maybe
this is
like Clifford. He's been there forever. DTR. Ugh.
Yeah. I think Arizona State is an interesting team to talk about just because they're going to be absolutely awful, and I think that Herm Edwards gets fired. Emory Jones
sucks.
Not the answer.
Trevor? Who's better, Bo Nix or Emory Jones?
Bo Nix, because he probably had a worse team to play with, and also Emory Jones played for Florida, so fuck him.
So just real quick, a team that I'm going to be watching on Pac-12 After Dark all the time is the Washington Huskies. IU's magical 2020 season was led by Michael Penix and Caleb DeBauer. They are linking back up there in Washington. DeBauer as the head coach and Penix as the transfer. I love DeBauer. He runs a very fast-paced, very quick-hitting system. That's exactly how Penix needs to play. Penix is injury prone, so you need the ball to get out of his hand at a Ben Roethlisberger pace. And I think, again, in a conference you're going to have to score a lot of points in, I think they have the capability of doing that. So Washington is kind of my over club team. Then obviously USC. So
I think
Huskies
it's also
this year.
I think it's also worth mentioning that Washington State's a pretty interesting team in the North. They're doing kind of like what Western Kentucky did when they just brought in, a D2 quarterback and offensive coordinator, and they're going to start running their system kind of an air raid. So they bring in Incarnate Ward, quarterback, Cam Ward, and their head coach there. So I think that's interesting and worth watching. And that was a team that almost actually last year. Even beat. I think that's interesting.
Basically, what Newman's trying to say is like Washington State's trying to bring Gardner Minshew back and air raid it out. It's not going to happen. There's not going to be any Minshew magic. Hence why we don't even have him here, like on our rubric.
It'll be
Let's bypass.
It'll be fun to watch, though. It'll be really fun to watch.
Can we talk Mullet Man in Texas? Anyway. Can we fast forward to talk about Quinn Ewers? The $1 million man that went to Ohio State just to collect his $1 million and leave, take his mullet and run back to Texas. Is Texas back?
Capitalism,
Better
baby.
mullet.
Is
Better
Is Texas
mullet.
better?
Quinn
Or
Ewers
is Texas
or
back?
Mike Gundy.
Mike Gundy doesn't have his
mullet.
mullet. That's the problem. Ewers has his mullet. That's why he's going to have more success. And that's ultimately where it relies. The power relies in the mullet. Don't ever forget that and always ride on that mullet. Hence why Texas has a plus, 290 in the conference. I think the second best to be there in the favorites in the Big 12, just behind Oklahoma at plus 190. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about in Texas. However, Oklahoma still holds a lot of firepower with Dylan Gabriel out there. That offense doesn't have one sophomore or freshman on there. That is a seasoned team, even though they had a lot of departures in Lincoln Riley. Obviously, their top quarterbacks left. Dylan Gabriel looks pretty good, and I like the maturity that they have on the offensive line. Brent Venables coming back here too, more defensive minded, something that Oklahoma's never had. Anyone can just score any points on Oklahoma. Now all of a sudden you got a defensive head coach on there. Maybe there's some type of some help there. I don't know. I think Oklahoma looks good coming into here, and I don't know. The only one to watch out for is that mullet that's coming out of there in Austin. That's one I would watch out for.
It's a 2-horse race. I know Newman will probably jump in on some Baylor facts here, but not too indifferent from the SEC. It's Oklahoma or Texas, and I think Texas is just a little too young. I think Oklahoma wins this conference. I think they run away with it, and I don't think it's particularly close or an interesting conference this year.
So Baylor lost top 5 pass catchers. Their starting quarterback. The guy they're replacing him with may be better. Lose 5 of their 7 top. So I just think it's going to be a team that's going to take a little bit of a regression. Not as high on Baylor as I was last year. I still think Oklahoma is going to struggle on defense, despite having Brent Venables there, because they're just not talented yet. He will get that right, but for now, I think this year is going to be maybe a little bit of a struggle. I think Texas is really good, but I still question some of the Sark and their defense. But they have a really exciting team. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm just on Oklahoma State there. On Derek Mason's in. I think their defensive line's still really good. And Spencer Steers is back. I don't know if that's good or bad, but 11 of their top 15 starters on offense and snap getters. I'm going to lean Oklahoma State. I'm not super confident. I think it could go either way. And then as a wild card there, I think Deuce Vaughn's really fun to watch at Kansas State, and they're going to pull off a couple upsets here and there. But the Adrian Martinez show is not the answer.
Newman.
K-State hasn't been fun to watch since Colin Klein was there.
No, of course they haven't. We didn't put any notes on K-State. And by the way, Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy does not have a mullet. So therefore, there will be nothing coming out of Oklahoma State out of here. So it is a 2-team run, just like as Brandon said, Oklahoma and Texas all the way. And until Mike Gundy grows that luxurious carpet coming out of the back of his back, there's nothing that's going to happen there. So go Oklahoma, go Texas, do something before you leave and go to the SEC.
How bad is this conference going to be?
So bad. It's going to be the first major one to dissolve. First one. I know we're going to talk about conference realignment at some point. This is going to be the first one to dissolve. I think we can all agree.
I do want to point out that this conference has some excellent NIL deals going for it. Did you guys hear the Dijon mustard that's going on? And then it's like a touchdown in your mouth. And then also Deuce Vaughn has a porta potty.
Talking about kitties and touchdowns in your mouth. Certainly an interesting show from Newman.
Newman, my kids listen to this pod. What do you just stop?
Yeah, I hope not.
All right, let's get to the ACC because, I mean, honestly, guys, no Big 12 teams competing for the national championship. Let's just super sim the rest of them.
Right? Yeah, probably not.
I'll tally onto that.
Cool. Let's jump to the ACC, which, again, it looks like very similar to the Big Ten, right, Trev? Like this looks like a one horse race with Clemson.
Yeah, that is what it looks like. There's Clemson definitely looks like the head horse. I mean, they've been the mainliner for a very long time. However, if anyone watched Clemson play last season, no one has any faith in DJ Ukulele. Like that guy ultimately just didn't look like he was in place. Didn't look like he knew what he was doing. Basically being bailed out by that defense, which, by the way, is one of the best defenses in the country. I see that there is going to be some interesting things happen in the ACC. I think Clemson obviously does great. However, I also think that Cade Klubnik, their 5-star quarterback, might be replacing DJ Ukulele later in the season. There seems to be some type of QB battle. I don't think that there's that confidence that you need in quarterback in DJ Ukulele. And I really think there's some other teams that have some returning players, some really, really, really good quarterbacks, and some teams that might be looked at and not necessarily taken seriously. And one of those teams I think is NC State, which NC State ranks 12th in returning production. And they had the third least amount of yards scored against. I mean, that is a good team. Devin Leary is a solid quarterback. Watch out for NC State here. That's the one team I think in all the ACC you really need to look out for. I won't talk about University of Miami, even though I think Taylor Van Dyke does a great job. But watch out for NC State, even though Clemson has a minus 130 there. NC State seems like a pretty solid one. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I don't think Clemson is a complete lock here. I think there's some other solid teams in the ACC that actually might have
Are we
an opportunity.
fading Pitt? Are we really fading Pitt? They're
Just from They're from Pennsylvania. Of course, we're any team.
No, just because Kenny Pickett is gone, they get Keaton Slovis from USC, who again, kind of similar to Connor Baslick. He needs to return to that former self, but he definitely has the talent, and Pitt just building something here. I'm not sure if Clemson can score the amount of points that Pitt's going to be able to put up. That's why Wake Forest is at least a little bit scary because they can at least put up points. I don't see a lot of
Sam
offense
Hartman
in this conference, Newman. I don't see a lot of offense in this conference. I think this is the most. It's more interesting than the Big 12, but this is, I think, the most boring conference out of the Big 10.
So we talked about the Big Ten's lack of quarterbacks. The ACC has all the good quarterbacks. We mentioned Sam Hartman. Unfortunately, he's going to miss some time with some stuff that he's got going on. Hopefully, he comes back at some point. That's not what I'm hearing. Hopefully, he comes back at some point. The question is whether or not that will be enough to save the season. Florida State gets him early, which is good for Florida State. Maybe he's not back yet. Or if he is back, he's a little bit rusty. That's kind of fingers crossed on that. Clemson is the best probably team still in terms of talent. Their defensive line is absolutely awesome, but they did have some injuries to it last year. The rest of their defense is still really good. They have some wide receivers that are talented, but they are all the same. They don't have like a slot guy. They're all just these big freaks. Their running game should be pretty good. But quarterback is absolutely a question. And if Cade Klubnik does not get into the game or it does not start for them at some point this season, I'd be a little surprised unless DJU actually turns it back on and looks like the quarterback that we saw from earlier.
Venables leaving is big, guys. I don't want. I mean, that's not only get talked about.
Not only do they lose Venables, they also lose Elliott. Fortunately for them, the talent is already there, so they didn't lose a lot of guys to the portal. But I think that them in the long run, and I think that Clemson is probably going to have a downward slide at some point here. In terms of your boy Pitt, not only did they lose Kenny Pickett, they also lost Jordan Addison, who was the Blitnikoff winner, and they lost their offense coordinator, Mark Whipple, who just put up the best offensive season that Pitt has ever had in school history. And then he leaves to take the job at Nebraska, which, Nebraska could be a little bit interesting this year. But after he leaves, on his way out, your boy Narduzzi goes, "Oh yeah, like, we'll run the ball a lot more this year. So wait, you're going to throw away all the offensive progress that you made last year and just start turning into, we're going to run the ball and play defense again and start losing? That's not going to work out well for them. So I'm down on Pitt in terms of long term. Their defense will still be pretty good this year, so they'll be decent. Going to some of the other teams in this conference, Malik Cunningham is a really good quarterback. He's, makes up a huge percentage of their offense for Louisville. He's quarterback.
Yeah, but Louisville's bad.
Is probably an NFL
like Malik
talent.
Cunningham's fun, but Louisville's bad.
I mean, what other players can you?
I don't think
the normal person say
that
is from
bad.
Louisville. I think Malik Cunningham's the only person that most normal person can think about when they think about Louisville.
I mean,
honestly,
I can honestly
I
say
could name 3 other
I
players.
won't watch a single Louisville game this year.
They did lose their top wide receiver to Alabama. He's a speed freak, but in general, that offensive line should be pretty good. They should be able to run the ball. Their defense is decent. They're a team that's going to be in a lot of games, and the problem is the ACC has 2 divisions still, and one division is a lot of good teams, and then the other division is a lot of crap. So that helps Pitt potentially win that side of the bracket still, but NC State is, as Trevor mentioned, one of my picks here to actually win this. They returned 13 of the 15 top players with 250 plus snaps from a unit that finished in the top 15. I think Devin Leary is pretty awesome. They have, good wide receivers, good running backs, offensive line. So as long as Devin Leary doesn't get hurt, this team very well and probably should win win the conference for them.
Be fair. You were all over NC State last year, and I faded you and lost money because of it. So I will eat some crow there that I faded NC State all year last year, and it bit me. So I may have to change my team.
Yeah,
I may have to change my team.
Yeah. In terms of Miami, the U is, still not great. Tyler Van Dyke is a really good young quarterback. Unfortunately for Florida State, they're basically going to play all these guys. They have, Cristobal's in, Manny Diaz is out, Josh Gaddis is going to be their new OC. Their offensive line is very young. They have a lot of turnover on the defense in terms of transfers and stuff like that. They do bring in Kevin Steele, who I don't know, like some people really like as defensive coordinator. I'm not super high on him from his days at Florida State. I didn't think he was all that good. But the question for Miami is, are they going to allow Tyler Van Dyke to throw the ball? Because Mario likes to ground and pound, and that we've seen him do it with Justin Herbert, and that wasn't fun, for Oregon, So, I mean, if they let him air it out, then they have a chance, but if not, that could be a problem.
There's a big
Tyler
common
Van Dyke's
theme.
windup. He has kind of like a Phillip Rivers type of windup.
it takes a full eclipse to get through,
like a full rotation.
Yeah,
there's a lot of talent. Miami's kind of a team that I'm buying, kind of similar to LSU. I do think Miami's going in the right direction, and they are the team that has the NIL figured out. They lead the nation in the direction of where they're taking the NIL. So again, like I said, I'm not the hugest Mario Cristobal fan. I think he overthinks things quite often. But often talent prevails bad scheming. I think we've seen that a lot in Clemson, in the past decade or so. So I'm buying Miami stock right now, just like I am LSU.
So you think Miami wins that half
Brandon
bracket?
likes Legos because he likes putting pieces together, even though they may not fit, and you're just getting from all over the place. You ever have Legos, you dump them onto a floor and there's a bunch of shit out there. You might have some good ones, you may have some bad ones, but you really need a good mastermind to put them together. What I heard was you don't necessarily like Cristobal, and so you think he can really put them all together and find the right one. I don't know. I'm a big Cristobal fan on the offensive mind, but to that point, Tyler Van Dyke needs to be able to throw the ball. I'm a big believer in him. I really like what he can do. If they let him air it out, I think they can do well. However, I don't think that's going to happen. And there's going to be some interesting things. But I think the big headliner here in the ACC is whatever quarterback does well and owns this conference is going to win this conference. It's going to be led by the quarterbacks, and that's what's going to happen here in the ACC. That's at least
Newman, say DJ's last name one more time.
You want me to say it?
Yes.
just like
ukulele?
how you play
Ukulele?
Uagalele.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
I'm calling
what
him ukulele all season.
So yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, Chris Ball, he wants to run the ball, and that they need to throw the ball to win. We'll touch on Florida State because I know that's what everyone's really here to see and hear. They returned 78% of their production. They took in several transfers, including guys along the offensive line and wide receiver, just two of their weakest areas. And they do bring in another defensive end transfer to replace Jermaine Johnson, who was an uber stud and uber transfer for them last year. This team is going to go based on, Jordan Travis's health. And they have a really tough schedule, but
Is Jordan Travis actually any good?
Yes, he's better than Connor Bazelak.
Well, okay.
But not as good as Malik Cunningham. Somewhere in between.
I don't know that I buy that either. I mean, Jordan Travis is incredibly important to Florida State, similar to Malik Cunningham is to Louisville.
I've only seen the guy run. Can the guy actually throw the ball?
That's been his biggest knock. And what he throw like 63% completion last season? He's gotten better every season. He's had no talent to throw the ball to. Like Florida State has had no wide receivers. Wait. I'm pretty sure one of Florida State's best wide receivers went to Indiana, right? Wait, what was that guy's name? Like
DJ Matthews.
DJ Matthews.
Yeah, who was a stud. And and it was sad from there. But we'll see. I think part of his problem is he just doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. But absolutely, he's a runner, and he needs to be able to run the ball this season in order for anything to happen.
The biggest question is, do they get their fourth consecutive losing season? The first time in almost 50 years? Is this a historically bad season for Florida State?
I think it's actually it would be the fifth, I think.
Florida State is in the midst of their fourth consecutive losing season for the first time since 1973 to 1976. Will that streak end at 4? So yes, it would be a fifth season in a row. If
I say yes.
I think yes too. I don't think the team has a lot of talent on their roster, to be honest.
No, I say the streak ends. I say yes.
The streak ends. Okay.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Good.
I'll take them to win 7.
Yeah, I think 7's the number. You can't go 8. Like that's
7.
I think Jordan Travis is going to be running for his life, man. That offensive line is scary, and he's not going to get any confidence to make throws. He's just not going to get. And when you become one dimensional, it's not good.
Yeah, the offensive line's much better. Jordan Travis had a bunch of touchdowns that got straight up dropped last year. I think that they'll take more shots. I think the offense is better without Kenny Dillingham. They'll run more motion, set up good plays, and I think the offensive line's improved, and they'll be able to run more play action. Plus, they got Trey Benson from Oregon, going to have a monster season for him. So I'm pretty high on this team. I think they're really good, and I think that they'll surprise some people with some of the games they do win. Let's jump over to the independents and some of the G5 and just talk about some of the teams that potentially could play New Year's 6. We're going to start with Notre Dame, obviously replacing Brian Kelly with Jack Cohn, with Marcus Freeman and Tyler Buckner. They did see a little bit of a recruiting uptick, but I think this team's probably going to finish like 10-2 or something like that, because they do open with Ohio State. They do have to play like USC, Stanford, etc., all those, and some of the Big Ten teams, ACC teams as well. But I think that for the most part, their ACC schedule is not too bad.
I mean, Buckner may not even keep the job over Drew Pine. I think they made a good coaching hire, but I think it's going to be a struggle in South Bend this year. I do.
Yeah. I mean, there's some other interesting teams, amongst this group. Houston has a chance to, they return a lot of players. The whole person is going to be interesting. Cincinnati, they lose a ton, but they still have some good players. Ben Bryant replaces is back to replace Ritter. BYU returns 85% of their production from last year, and they were a 10-win team. Fresno has your boy DeBauer's gone, but Jeff Tedford's back, but they still have Jake Haener. App State, they get to host UNC. Georgia State also gets to host UNC, which is fucking weird. Why is UNC playing teams at all?
That's just how you don't go to bowl games. That's how you don't go to bowl games.
So stupid.
It's really bad. No, my team is UCF. John Reese Plumlee. Yeah, John Reese Plumlee is super fun, gadget guy. I think at a school like UCF or any group of 5, you need gadget guys to make it fun. So I'm going to watch UCF football because of Daniel Tosh and John Reese Plumlee.
Who gets to go New Year's Six bowling here from this group?
Nobody.
Coastal Carolina.
Nobody.
So, I mean, Coastal has lost a lot of talent. They do have Jamie Chadwell and Grayson McCall back, but Trevor, they have to. Literally, one of these teams has to go. So you can't say nobody. That's a bad answer.
Okay. UCF, because they had your gadget person. I'm really not putting any weight into the G5 and what's happening. It's all about
you shouldn't. It was a freak year last year with Cincinnati. You're right, Trevor.
Yeah, none of these teams necessarily matter until the college realignment happens and one of these teams, maybe one, makes it to like a conference. Like, I really don't give anything about any of these teams, honestly, other than Notre Dame. Notre Dame is the big ticket one, and by the way, I don't know how they're getting as much love and potentially making like the college football playoff. Like, Notre Dame is going to regress, and they should. And look at their history, like in the college football playoff. Like, come on, like we need.
Their chances are about as real as Manti Te'o's girlfriend was.
Exactly.
Let's jump to Heisman real quick as we are growing a little long in the tooth for this show. As Newman pointed out, Heismans just don't win back-to-back. Bryce Young is the second best odds at plus 350, but I personally think this is CJ Stroud's thing to lose. And with as easy as Ohio State's going to roll in the regular season, he's going to have to lay an egg in the Big Ten championship game to not win the Heisman. I think it's a damn layup. I also, I could see Caleb Williams just in case if USC, runs the tables in the Pac-12. So that's, if you're looking for odds, Caleb Williams is 8-1. But really, I mean, guys, is there anyone else other than CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams that you're seriously considering?
No, not necessarily. So I think as you mentioned, go ahead, Noobs.
I think Will Anderson may have the best chance that any defensive player has had in recent years, just because of the season that he had last year leading into that and people talking about him. That's what a defensive player needs, is they need pre-season hype. But I mean, I think like Bijan Robinson is probably a safer bet there at the same odds. And then, I mean, a guy like Quinn Ewers or Jameer. I also like Jameer Gibbs, the running back from Alabama. But my favorite bet is my boy Cam Rising at Utah, 8,000-1. I think those are excellent odds. And
the same odds as DTR, Jordan Addison, Max Johnson. So yeah, I mean, Cam Rising is down there.
I mean, if Utah goes to the college football playoff, right? Then I mean, I think he's got a chance, and he should. So I like that as a play, 8,000-1. It's really good odds. Throw a little cash on it, see if you can win some money.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't bet against that. I think that's a really good one to throw against. I also think Jackson Smith Njigba is also one to keep an eye on. Like if you think about players that actually can win a Heisman, No one's on defense. Very rarely do we get a running back. We've had a wide receiver recently that's won it, and your headliner CJ Stroud, who's going to be throwing it to the best wide receiver out there, which is your Smith and Jigba. So watch out for him. I think that's who I at plus 33. 3,300. I like him. I like that one right there. The one that would fade heavy is DJ Ukulele, whatever. Like, get off of that Clemson quarterback. I don't know why they gave him 2,500 odds. Like, that's just absolutely insane. So, CJ Stroud, yes, I like it, but give me Smith and Jigba. I think that's going to be your best bet in means of if you want to throw some money down for bang for your buck.
Yep. Any chance that Smith and Jigba eats into CJ Stroud's chances? I mean,
no, they kind of like breed off of each other.
They complement each other more than they.
You can split voters. You know what I mean? Like if that's the case. So I think that it's possible there. The other thing about Smith and Jigba is that Ohio State's loaded in the wide receiver room. Marvin Harrison Jr., some other guys that they have there. That maybe he spreads the ball around and Smith and Jigba doesn't get quite as many great opportunities. But anyway, all right. So let's go to our college football playoff predictions here.
Yeah, no, I think this is pretty cut and dry. I was boring last year when I did it. I'm going to be pretty boring when I do it this year. Give me Alabama. Give me Ohio State. Give me USC. Give me Oklahoma.
Trevor?
It's pretty easy. Give me Ohio State. Give me USC. And fuck it. Give me Texas A&M. I just don't want to bet on Alabama or Georgia. It's too boring. But primarily, I think Ohio State's going to run it. And USC is going to be my number 2.
Yeah, Trevor, we're thinking too much alike. This is trouble.
I know. It's bad for both of us, my friend. Not good for any of us.
So I've got Alabama, Ohio State, Utah, obviously. I'm not going to talk them up and not put them in there. And then the fourth is kind of hard for me. Mm-hmm. I just don't see it with Clemson. I don't really like Oklahoma either. So I'm going to go back to the well, and I'm going to say give me some more Georgia action.
I just like the quarterback at Oklahoma more, and they have an easier road. Like the Big 12's down, right? Like
I just don't think that they're heading like a class above the rest of that team, like that conference. I think they take a couple losses, and that's a death sentence in a weaker conference.
Yeah, I think we can all agree Notre Dame isn't going to be in any of our ones up there. Mm-hmm.
Neither is Michigan. Clemson again. I think we're all fading Ukulele and no Brent Venables there. I think that's
so the differences we've got here are I like Utah, you guys like USC, and then Trevor has Texas A&M, and I have Georgia, and Brandon has Clemson. So
no, I have Oklahoma.
Oh, you have Oklahoma. Okay.
Everyone's fading Clemson.
All right. So there we go. There you have it. This
national champion. We picking national champions too.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
I hate it. OHIO. The Buckeyes bring another national championship to the Big Ten and kind of restore a little bit of faith into the best conference in America.
All right. Well, that was mine, so I can't do the same as you. So therefore, I'm going to go with like him. USC Trojans and see what the Pac-12 can do and get their first one out there.
Okay, I mean, if you guys are just going to leave me the low-hanging fruit, I'll take Alabama, and I'll see you next year with another win.
You're welcome, Newman.
Well, guys, thank you for hanging out for the college kickoff tailgate. Week 0, we got some Big Ten action. You got some Pac-12 action. It should be fun.
We'll have a mini live session for you Saturday morning or we started on that.
Absolutely, guys. As always, check us out at Sports Memery. Check out our pods at the Sports Cap Radio. Until then, guys, I'll see you Saturday.
Go Noles.
Enjoy.